Taking an angle grinder to a pristine side panel of a perfectly good van is without a doubt the most terrifying 10 minutes of any DIY conversion. You measure it 6 times, you tape it all up, you drill out those pilot holes, and you hold your breath as the sparks fly. But here is the brutal truth. The time-lapse build montages completely ignore the danger. Now anybody can cut a hole in a metal box with a jigsaw. The real danger is what happens 6 months from now when you're miles away from home, parked up on a remote coastal road in the freezing rain, keeping water out of a static timber building is one thing. But I've spent about 26 years now as a professional trade joiner, building bespoke garden rooms, custom wardrobes and fitted furniture. So I know exactly how timber and moisture interact. But keeping water out of a vibrating, twisting metal box hurtling down the motorway at 70 miles an hour, that is a completely different beast. Over the last 4 years that I've been living on the road, I've seen exactly where these DIY builds fail. So today we are going to bulletproof your window and your skylight cutouts against the invisible van killers, internal condensation and hidden water ingress. We're going to be doing this long before your insulation ever touches those walls. So picture this scenario. It's the middle of November. You're parked up in a forest somewhere. It's pitch black outside. The wind is absolutely howling and the rain is absolutely hammering against the roof. Now the diesel heater is keeping the chill off. My Cocker Spaniel, Rowan, is snoring in her bed and you should be fast asleep. But you're not. You are wide awake, staring at the ceiling in the dark. So because of the sound of the storm outside, you can hear it. A faint, slow, rhythmic drip. And it's coming from directly behind that beautiful tongue and groove timber ceiling you spent 3 agonising weeks measuring up, cutting and pinning straight into place. Now this is the moment your stomach completely drops, because you realise that drip isn't new. It's just the first time that it's breached the cladding. Now that drip has been quietly weeping behind the walls for months. So every time it rained, every time you washed your vehicle, water was silently tracking past the outer flange of your skylight, pooling in the metal ribs. It was soaking into your expensive insulation like a sponge and aggressively rotting out the timber subframes. Now, to fix what was originally a 10-minute Sealant failure, you have absolutely no choice. You have to rip down thousands of pounds of worth of custom joinery. You have to destroy your ceiling, pull out mouldy, waterlogged insulation, grind away surface rust that has started eating your roof, and basically start from scratch. It is the ultimate nightmare for any self-builder. Now before I show you the exact trade technique I use to make sure that 3 AM panic never happens to you, I want to address the other side that keeps DIY builders awake at night, and that is electrical fires. So water might rot your van slowly, but a poorly connected fuse on a lithium battery bank will end your journey in minutes. Now I see so many people getting parallel lithium wiring completely wrong, which is why I've put together a free 1-page cheat sheet called the Safe and Sorted 12-volt battery wiring guide. It gives you the exact cable metrics, the complete MRBF fuse sizes, and shows you a proper dialogue wiring methods to prevent systems from overheating. It completely removes the guesswork from your electrical bay. So the link for that will be right in the top of the description, or if you're watching this on Facebook, I'll leave it in the pinned comments. So go click it, drop your email in, and the PDF will land in your inbox instantly. So sort your electrics out before you cover them up. Now let's fix these windows so they outlast the engine. Now when most people install a bonded window to a roof or a roof fan, they focus entirely on the outside perimeter. They file the freshly cut edges, they paint on some rust converter, they lay down a thick track of brutal tape, and they screw the plastic frame in and maybe run a massive bead of silicone around the exterior of the flange, and then they just call it a day, crack open a beer and move straight into the insulation phase. Now this is a catastrophic mistake. The exterior seal handles the heavy lifting, yes, but commercial vans flex. Every time you mount the curb, every time you hit a pothole, the chassis is going to twist over thousands of miles, and twisting applies microscopic stress to your exterior window seals. Now eventually a tiny pillory gap is going to form. Now I'm not saying that everybody screws their windows in. You can get the ones that have got just the seal on and you just tape them on. But even if it doesn't, you still have a second enemy to fight: internal condensation. Now a van is essentially a metal tin can. When you sleep, when you boil that kettle, when you breathe, you are pumping moisture into the trapped air. Moisture aggressively seeks out the coldest surface it can find. Now the exposed metal edge around the freshly cut window, where the inner and outer steel skins meet, actually act as a massive thermal bridge to the freezing outside air. Now if you just shove your PIR board over it, the warm, moist interior air bypasses the freezing insulation. It hits the freezing cold window frame cavity and turns back into liquid water and pulls out of sight inside your wall cavities. You end up rotting your woodwork from the inside out without a single drop of rain ever falling. So how do the pros stop both external leaks and the internal condensation in one hit? 1 minute, Grandad, I'm just recording something. We use a technique I call the flush secondary defence line. This happens entirely on the inside of the van, right where the plastic and inner frame of the window or skylight meets the raw metal of your skin cutout. So first, preparation is absolutely everything. Before you even think about picking up a cork gun, you need to completely degrease that internal gap. Use a high quality panel wipe or automotive brake cleaner on a clean lint-free cloth. Do not use white spirit, because white spirit leaves an oily, greasy film on it. The metal that chemical sealants absolutely hate. It will prevent a true bond. So wipe that internal 90-degree corner down until it's completely clean and the cloth comes away spotless. Now you need a high modulus polyurethane adhesive sealant like Sikaflex 221 or that Puriflex 40 are absolute trade standards here. Do not use cheap bathroom silicone. It does not have the structural flexibility to handle the relentless vibration of the commercial vehicle on the road. So cut that nozzle at a sharp 45-degree angle and keep the opening relatively small. You are going to run a continuous unbroken bead right into that internal corner where the window frame meets the inner of the metal skin of the van. So work slowly, pushing the sealant slightly ahead of the nozzle to force it deep into the gap, completely locking out any air pockets. Now, here is the crucial fundamental mistake that DIYers make at this stage. The glob of the sealant is incredibly thick. Now if you leave a massive bulging weld of that Sikaflex around the inside of the window, you are creating a massive headache for tomorrow. When you push your 25mm or 50mm insulation PIR board against the wall, the rigid board is going to hit that rubbery lump. it won't sit flush against the metal skin, and it's going to bow outwards. So when your insulation bows outward, it kicks your timber battens completely out of alignment. If your timber battens don't sit square, then when you finally try and screw your expensive tongue and groove cladding or pin it in place, the walls are going to look like a bloody roller coaster. As a joiner, I can tell you that absolutely everything in a build relies on a square, flush and plumb structure. If you mess up the foundation layer, you fight it all the way to the finish line. So to execute a flush defensive line correctly, you have to tool that polyurethane bead completely flat. So once your bead is laid down, take a profiling tool or just use your gloved finger, lightly mist some sealant with a spray bottle containing some water with a tiny drop of washing up liquid in it. Now this soapy mixture stops the highly adhesive Sikaflex or whatever you're using from sticking to the tool or your glove and dragging out the joint. Just run your finger on the profiling tool around the entire perimeter, pressing the sealant flat against the metal and the plastic frame. You want to force it deep into the micro gaps and feather the edges out so that it's perfectly flush with the inner wall of the van. What you have just created is a structure impermeable dam. Now if by some miracle driving rain manages to penetrate the outer brutal seal over the next 5 years, it will hit this secondary polyurethane dam and stop dead. It cannot enter the wall cavity, it cannot soak into your insulation. Simultaneously, you have completely eliminated the capillary gaps that allow warm interior air to reach the freezing metal outer skin. You have just locked out condensation trap at the source. And because you took your time to tool it perfectly flush, tomorrow morning when it cures into a tough, inflexible rubber, your PIR board will press completely tight and flat against the wall. Your timber framing battens will also sit perfectly true, and your interior cladding will go straight as an arrow. So taking that extra 15 minutes to apply a flush secondary defence line on every window and fan cutout is the difference between hoping your van survives the winter and having an absolutely ironclad confidence that your build will outlast the vehicle itself. Now ripping out a rotted wall takes 3 weeks and breaks your heart. Applying a flush bead of Pure Effects takes about 15 minutes and costs you a £5. It's a no-brainer. But dealing with cutouts is just one tiny piece of a massive puzzle that is building a camper van. When you are standing in the back of an empty, echoing metal box, looking at all those weird angles and metal ribs, figuring out exactly where to place your timber battens, how to secure your heavy bed frame so it doesn't squeak while you drive, and what order to sequence the entire build. I get it, it's completely overwhelming. It's incredibly easy to make a structural mistake in week 2 that totally details your finishing work in week 8. That is exactly why I've created this Peugeot Boxer Conversion Blueprint. Now I took my 25 years of bespoke joinery experience, combined it into everything that I've learned living full time in the van, and condensed it into a comprehensive step-by-step masterclass. Now this blueprint removes the midnight anxiety. It eliminates the trial and error. It gives you the exact trade measurements, the precise material lists, and the professional build sequence I use. This ensures that every batten is secure, every panel is flush, and every millimetre of space is optimised for strength and weight. So if you want to stop guessing, stop scrolling them forums at 2 AM looking for your answers, and start building with the confidence of a seasoned trade professional, hit that link below in the description, or if you're on Facebook, I'll leave it in the pinned comments, and get yourself the blueprint today. Save yourself the stress, save yourself the wasted materials and do it right the very first time. Make sure you've grabbed that free 12-volt wiring cheat sheet that I mentioned at the start and get out there, build it right, and I will catch you guys on the next one.